Hey, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co.
I'm Professor Meg.
And today we are reviewing Neon Rain from Manny Tremblay and Neon Knights, which I think is a subsidiary of Chip Theory Games at this point. I think Chip Theory Games is working with them on the studio.
I'm not a doctor.
There's a There's a correlation with Chip Theory Games here. Either way, this is Neon Rain from Manny Tremblay, a 1-to-2 player game that is mimicking a video game experience.
Also, just something to note, because we say bye sometimes, this is also art and rules. All of that. Point. Everything by Manny Tremblay.
All this beautiful artwork over here, illustrated design by Manny Tremblay, and I'm going to go ahead and draw a hand of 7 cards, because I think, honestly, showing you a turn or two is the fastest way to teach this game. But the basic idea, do you want to grab some cards? Because you'll need 7 cards as well.
Sure. So just to show you guys, you are going to be playing as these different characters. So here we have the others just displayed for you to see, but now I'm going to move them all away.
Yeah. And the basic idea of this game is it is a button masher. It's a button masher played out across 3 rounds. You're going to play a round, get a token for winning, and then basically play best of 3. So not necessarily 3, best of 3, I should say. But what you're going to do is, I'm currently the first player, as illustrated by my deck over here. 1 versus 2 player, that little 1 versus 2 player button over there. And then I'm going to look at my hand, and I'm going to choose a combination of cards. Oh my gosh, this is not the best card. I'm gonna... Yeah, I don't have any of my... whatchamacallit. I'm going to just go ahead and do this over here. We're just going to go aggressively attack, and I'm going to place these down over here. So I'm placing 2 A buttons and a B button against Meg over here. That's going to be my attack right now. You can play 1 to 3 buttons with the attack symbol in order to attack, and then you go ahead and get universal combos. Universal combos is the idea that you have certain universal combos on your player aid for combining various joystick and button mashing. This is, after all, an arcade game simulated as a board game. In this case, I just went ahead and did button mashing, and you always need a little bit of movement to make your button mashing more effective. I did not have that. And so in this case, I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 damage. And because I have 2 of the same button, I'll get a bonus damage as indicated here. So I'm going to have a 5 damage attack against Meg, assuming she doesn't play anything defensively. Do you have anything defensively to play?
I do.
Ooh, we're going to go ahead and play a defensive retreat over here. So this card over here has a defensive symbol. And so she can go ahead and play that to gain a star and a health. But there are no combos in defensive play. But she will get that star, and she'll be able to go ahead and heal as well. Those are going to be my 3 cards. They go to my discard pile. And now, Meg, you can go ahead and take 4 or 5 damage. Now, some defensive plays will actually remove cards that have been played. Other defensive plays will not, as you just saw over there. That one's more of a just prepping yourself defensively as opposed to actually dismantling my attack. So if you want to go ahead and play any card.
Sure.
Or any 1 to 3 cards.
I'm also just realizing this one needs 10 for his special, which is crazy. Yeah. But we will play this, which is going to buff some attack for me. And I'm going to choose to play XX with it as well.
Okay, so now we have a bunch more combinations going on. What we have we have, once again, these 1, 2 damage, which is going to be 3 because you have 2 of the same kind. But then we also have, over here, we're going to have, because you've done a right-moving joystick, that button combination combined with the button is an extra damage as well. And you're going to get all the combos. So you get this combo, plus this combo, plus this combo. And then I'm also going to remove a card from the top of my deck into my discard pile. And that's going to be that over there.
That was a good one to get rid of.
Depleting. Yeah, that is a good one to get rid of. So you have the star and you have all the combinations, but I'm going to go ahead and play Combo Breaker. So I'm going to play Combo Breaker defensively, which is going to skip all the universal combos. So you'll still get the effects, but I've broken your combos in this case. And there are other things that can block attacks, moving buttons, or throws that can block the joystick, stopping that, and removing the card and any potential combos. That's the core idea of what you're doing. On your turn, you're going to play 1 to 3 cards. Defensively, you can play a few cards as well to react to your attack. And alternatively, on your turn, if you ever want to draw cards and you have less than a full hand size, you can choose to draw back up to 7. So on my next turn, I could play 3 buttons, which I have 3 buttons over here, or I can draw back up to a hand size of 7, which of course when you do so, you're leaving yourself open for an attack because you didn't attack that turn, you prepped, and you have to figure out when the right time to draw is versus when to maximize the card play.
I would argue you're less open for an attack because you have a full hand of 7 cards and you can block.
You're taking a break, less open to attack. You're completely correct there. Now, other things to know.
You're less on the offense.
Other things to know is, first of all, you're gathering stars. Why are you gathering stars? Because whenever you get your stars, whatever your star level is, so for example, yours is 10, but you'll issue a 10 damage attack and generate 3 shields defensively.
Amazing.
So you have that going on for you. Players also have a special ability. I have Button Mash. When playing 3 buttons, add 2 damage, which means the last turn I should have actually added 2 damage because I did play 3 buttons. I gave up the combo, but my character just wants to hit. That's all they want to do. You should play as that character.
Yeah.
But past that,
I have.
Yeah, you have. But that's going to be the button mashing over here. That's going to be the character ability, the star ability, which gives you a benefit, and then outside Alongside that, of course, you have your health, where you'll start with 25, and you're going to rinse and repeat that cycle until you bring an opponent down to 0. And that is basically the 2-player version of the game. The solo game is going to be the same basic puzzle, but in this case, you're going to be fighting against a solo deck, as well as solo characters. So all the characters in the game are also going to have that is your, these are your cards, that is not my cards.
You also don't go on top of your deck when you play them.
You're also going to have these solo characters, which are just versions of the regular characters. In fact, some of these are actually non-version. This is not these are shuffled together. There we go. So we have some of these characters over here that are going to give you the same, a little tweaks to their gameplay to be a better fit for solo mode. And you're also going to be playing with a solo deck. And the solo deck is going to operate both defensively and offensively. Defensively, you're going to play your cards, and then they're going to reveal a card, and they do whatever is on the bottom half. For example, over here, they blocked one of my attacks over here, removing it from play. So they automatically react. And then when it's their turn, they're going to play a card, and they're going to do whatever's on the top half. In this case, they did an up button plus an X as their attack. And then there are different levels of the AI, whether you're playing with an AI that needs to refresh, or the regular AI, or the more difficult. There's 3 different levels and tiers of how difficult the AI is, but effectively it's simulating a human opponent, just doing so with those cards to be able to drive home, I play cards, I defend, I get rid of your attack, I break your combos, all simulated through that solo deck. And that is basically how you play Neon Rain, which means it's time for our review. Meg, what do you like about the game?
Well, the thing that I love the most about this game is the special moves that you work up toward. So a big thing even in video games is that you're usually working towards certain special moves, and you really do feel like that. I find that they're all very diverse. The abilities are very different, but they all feel pretty cool, and I wouldn't say game breaking, but you really want to be working toward doing those kinds of things, whereas the general gameplay is just kind of ramping you up to those specials. So I think those are really what makes the game for me, and it makes it so unique no matter who you're playing with, that they change a lot.
And there's a whole chunk of characters to go through. The whole chunk you saw earlier, plus apparently 1 or 2 mixed into the solo deck over here. But I'll start for me, the art. The art and production is top-notch. Manny Tremblay's an incredible artist. He's done a whole lot of games, and this is definitely one of those games. Well, this is definitely one of those games it's got beautiful art. It's got beautiful art and presentation for the characters that really brings you into the world. Combined with that, like you said, the biggest thing for me is going to be the character diversity, the character variety in the game that gives you different reasons to dive into the combos. Because the card play itself is fairly static game to game, because your deck is fairly static, and game to game it's the same deck, so that's not going to change a lot. So it's definitely going to be the characters you're playing as or against, and that's true for solo and 2-player, that are going to give the game the slight variety, the slight freshness to the experience. Past that, it does have that button masher feel. So if you are looking for a game that's just play a bunch of cards, react, whatnot, this does have that feel to the experience. So it can be satisfying in the sense that you just get to unleash like a cool combo, although I'm ready to get into the things I don't like. Are you ready? What are you?
I have another thing I like.
Oh, go for that first. Because my although tangents into that. Go ahead.
This may be something you don't like, but something that I do like about this, because it is meant to be a head-to-head, you're fighting at each other, quick-paced game that's kind of cutthroat. I do like that you have to take a turn to draw cards. So as opposed to like drawing a card every turn and just making choices based off of that, I really like that you have to choose when to do that. And again, like you can really build up defensively if you need to. Then I really... It is difficult, and you're not going to like it when you're playing. You're not going to want to take a turn just to draw. You're like, ugh. But because of that, I think that's what makes it very fun and strategic, because I just really like that twist as opposed to just drawing throughout the game.
The biggest tough part to deal with then is when you have a hand of like 2 or 3 cards, you're like, I could get a turn in, but it's not necessarily the best turn. Do I optimize around my cards and so I get the most out of my hand, or do I just draw back up? And that is a thing. And although I should say as well, I also like the fact that there's defensive play. The fact that you can kind of pace your hand, leaning to what you're saying in the hand management, the fact that you can pace your hand around trying to play cards defensively does give you a little bit more agency to control how much you're getting out of every single hand in order to maximize things. As far as things I don't like in the game, the biggest, well, there's going to be 2 things, but the first thing is, at the end of the day, sometimes your hand is a dead hand, and that just feels like, in a game that's so just dependent on your deck, and there's some choice around what you're doing, but a lot of it's just dependent on the cards come your way and you play them. Having a dead hand just is less satisfying. Having a hand full of buttons like I just had, I would have had 2 turns with just buttons, which ironically happens to work with this character, but in general, a bunch of buttons with no movement would be a terrible hand, and I have to go through that, and this can be true for defensive thing as well. Defensively, you might play a whole bunch of blocks against me, and I'm like, I'm just going to take your damage, and I have nothing defensively. So there certainly is the luck of the draw present in this game.
I think for me, The only thing I wish, because this is a lighter game, and for me, I do wish there was a little bit more complexity. And I think the change that I would love to see is that if, like, for example, these characters, if you had your base decks that you always play with, but then if you flipped them over and they had, like, a suggested build and you actually change, you know, you pull out certain cards or add certain things so that the decks are built around the characters instead and what works best with their abilities and things like that. So I think that's, like, the little that would, like, make it a bit better for me is if these guys, because I don't think you would want custom decks for everyone or anything like that, but I think if you could adjust them a little bit based on your character, that could make it feel a little more custom.
Yeah, and that does lean into the other thing for me where, at the end of the day, like you said already, this is a much lighter experience. It's a lighter experience than I'm personally looking for. The similarity of the main deck you're playing with every single game and the lack of a ton of agency over how you play things does mean that overall this is just too light of an experience for what I personally benefit from as much. I think it does a good job. Well, we'll get to Final Thoughts second, but as far as things I don't like, it's too light of an experience for me. Which I guess brings us to Final Thoughts. For me, Final Thoughts on this is kind of things we touched upon already. I think if you're looking for a fun button masher that brings that feel while having great art and production, this delivers on that. Ultimately, for me, I want a lot more agency out of the decisions I'm making in a game. For me, this was a fine experience, but not one that I got a particular ton of satisfaction from, because it's like, you play cards, you do your thing, you hit your combos. Like, it's fun to do, but it's fun in the almost like casual party game sense and not really leaning into the strategy I want out of it. That's maybe true for both co-op, both two-player as well as solo play. For me, this is going to be coming in at a 3 out of 5.
For me, I agree as well. I think that this is a very fast-paced game, so I think that if you enjoy fast-paced card games that are a bit head-to-head, I kind of thought of it as a similar like rock, paper, scissors mechanic where you're kind of just coming at each other with what you're drawing and you kind of have similar abilities. So for me, I actually played a bit of this with the solo mode as well, and I'm rating it differently for...
I debated doing that. I am. Do you like a better solo?
Yes.
I like a better solo too.
Yeah, so...
I did. Go ahead. I debated doing the same thing. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, I'm going to rate it at a 3 for group play with other people play, because it does feel like you're just very reactive and the things do feel very similar. But for solo play, I have been playing more and more solo games the past few years, and for me, there's 2 categories that. One solo play is that you have to run the game, and you're actually running like the thing the game is doing, and you have to. It feels a bit more like a chore, and you have to go through things and steps. And this, I think, is fantastically done. I would rate it a 3.5 for the solo mode. I think it is a lot stronger solo. I really love how it runs itself. It doesn't ask that much of you. That I think if you're a solo gamer that wants a quick card game to play while you're traveling and things like that, this is, you know, in that little niche. I definitely enjoyed it alone more.
Yeah, I completely heard that. Like, I very much debated doing the exact same thing with the exact same ratings. At the end, I decided that as much as I do like the solo mode more, it's close to a 3.5, but it didn't bump it enough, which is why I didn't. But I completely agree on the takeaway.
But all of that being said, this does feel like a button masher as a card game. It absolutely does.
Yeah. Which brings us to recommendations. As far as recommendations?
So for me, I'm going to recommend Flux in general. There are quite a few Fluxes, so you're also able to pick up ones that speak to you based on the genre or whatever. But that's a game where you're constantly looking for the right combination. So it is a more reactive where you're trying to play out different cards and things like that, but you're always trying to match your 2 items to the goal, which to me felt kind of similar of like trying to find sets of cards that work well together.
And for me, I'm going to be coming in with Dice Throne. If you are looking for another 2-player competitive game with a bit more strategy going on, well, a lot more strategy going on to the choices you're making, Dice Throne is another game that's also illustrated and designed by Manny Tremblay as well, but gives you, I think, a lot more, it has that video game kind of feel, a lot more focus on rolling dice as opposed to button mashing card play, and one that I definitely enjoy a bit more.
And speaking of Manny Tremblay and things I'm excited for this year, Excalibur is coming, and that is one to definitely keep your eyes out for.
And in the case, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co.
I'm Professor Meg.
And have a good one.
Bye.